So I've been here multiple times. Just recently in Western Kansas, I did the tour of Dodge City and Garden City, uh, and also Colby, Kansas. And so I've spent some time. And then when I was mayor, I had an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time, traveling the entire state because I was president of the Kansas League of Municipalities. So
Sure.
so I had a chance to go through and visit different communities and things of that nature.
Do you find campaigning is a little bit different in the rural parts of the state than in the urban parts? Are there issues that people are particularly interested in over people in the urban areas?
The time frame it takes you to get there, that's different. Once you arrive, it's always interesting to find out. We immediately assume that all of their situations they're different. Maybe because they live in a rural area and you live in an urban area. And when you start talking to them, everyone wants to talk to you about infrastructure issues. They want to talk about public safety issues. They want to talk about economic development or growth issues. And it's, a lot of it is their perspective. As an example, one particular town, they were talking to me over by Marion. They were discussing it with me about economic growth, and they needed something that created job creation along the highway. And so as they were all brainstorming, and I talk with them about regional economic development, and their idea was to have a truck stop. And so after I started explaining to them about truck stops, and that's not necessarily what we call real economic development growth, and you need to turn around, you need to create where you have jobs long-standing 20, 40, 50 years out, and then secondly where one salary will actually take care of a family, and you can make a living off of it, and it provide benefits and things with something that's steady as opposed to a truck stop. And so after I started talking more with them about that and the additional opportunities, then they're like, well, maybe that's not what we want. And I said, well, that's why we need to look at regional economic development growth, and what do you really truly need for this community, and what does everybody need, and what direction, what's the vision that they would actually have. So so we started out one conversation, and then before the evening was over with, we were having a totally different conversation.
What can the governor, or what could you do as governor to do to particularly kind of bring that about, bring those long-range plans in effect and help those along, do you think?
Well, as governor, one of the things that you can do is, first of all, the same things, since I served as mayor and served, one of the cities here in Kansas, is having communication and talking to mayors and visiting with them as to what's going on, what's happening, and what are their needs, what is their vision. And then, as a policymaker, be there to assist local government in being successful in meeting their objectives and their goals. And so you have to be there to do that, as opposed to dictating and telling them, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And we've seen a lot of that happen here at the state level, where they've actually taken away that authority from the local level. And the local level, those are the individuals that I firmly believe are the people that are in the trenches. I mean, the governor and those individuals were several miles away, and we're making policy decisions that we're not going to change that policy decision until the next session comes along. And local government, they're making decisions that affect you each and every day, and they're going to see you the day after they make that decision. And they're going to be ones that's going to answer to any of your concerns, or whether it's pleasure or displeasure. They're the ones that's going to be able to answer that to you. So as a policymaker and as governor, you can go and you can help communities be able to grow, but then actually be there as a resource and a tool to be able to support them and to help them and to hear what the things are that they say that they need for the people that live in that community, for the citizens, for the children, and for the families in those communities, and work with those mayors and those commissioners, those county commissioners in that area, to be able to help them. So there's lots of different policy issues, whether it be healthcare, or whether it be education, or whether it be economic development, job growth. Those are things that you can actually help with those communities and being able to assist them.
Okay. Now, having listened to you and the others at the Democratic Forum and read different stories and everything,
Mm-hmm.
it does seem like the Democratic candidates, for the most part, have very similar ideas about how to approach the various issues that the state is facing.
Hmm.
So, what makes you different from any of the other candidates, I guess?
Well, I think the thing that makes me different from the rest of them is it's difficult to express a walk of life or experience something, and because there's not too much I haven't. I mean, I come from corporate America. I was an executive for them, and I served in the military. I was an officer for them, and then I started out. I was a community activist. I went through the ranks, was elected to city council member, and then became vice mayor, and then became mayor of the largest city in the state of Kansas. And so you take all of that experience and being the mayor. I'm the only one that really has the real leadership and executive experience. Many of the individuals they've never had to answer your questions or to deal with you, with citizens and families, individuals inside their communities at the local level. I mean, they go there and they wave at a ribbon cutting and then they leave. Well, as a mayor, you don't get that option. You know, if something is bad, then you have to answer to it. If something's good, then certainly you get an opportunity to answer to that. You don't get an opportunity to make 100% of the people happy all the time, but the ones that you didn't make happy, you owe them an explanation. The other thing is I think that I'm the only one that's had to lay out a vision as to what direction my particular city is going to go, and what did we accomplish this year, and where are we going to be the next year, and what are our goals and our objectives, and then also identify whether we fail or not, and explain that to citizens each and every year as to what's going on and what's happening. Many of them have not had to do that, and I had to do it, during my state of the cities as to what was going on, what was happening, and then and certainly individuals that's out there with them every day. And I'm more of a hands-on type person, so my experience as a community activist led me to carry that over as a mayor, and I think it would help me help as a governor. Is we have to have a different form of governor. You have to have somebody what we call identify as true leadership and lead by example. And because I know how to do that, and I've been taught to do that, and I've had to do that, then it allows me to be much more different than the rest of them. And I think that here in Kansas, that's what we're at this point in time, because it's a disaster right now, and it doesn't appear that the legislation can get it fixed. And then the big question is well, we have to figure out how to get past party lines. And coming from Wichita, lots of different factions that I'm presenting that makes me different. Coming from Wichita, I certainly have had to do that, whether it's racial barriers or whether it's be cultural or ethnicities or any of those types of things. I've had the opportunity in social economics. I've had the opportunity to have to work past those different types of things and to bridge over and get Republicans and Democrats to make sure that the number one focus is the people. It's not politics. It's not any of those things. It's the people and the community, and make those the priority and get them to work together to come with solutions that will solve their issues and keep them on the forefront. You're not going to get away from a certain amount of politics and party politics.
Sure.
But you can certainly put a larger portion of it to what's in the best interest of people, whether that's public safety, infrastructure, things of that nature.
Okay. What do you think is going to be the biggest task for the next governor of Kansas?
Rebuilding trust, because at the current environment, there isn't a lot of trust out there, and people just don't trust government, and certainly at the national level, our current leader is not helping us in any way in establishing that. But then, secondly, going out and physically fixing the budget and keeping transparency and allowing people to understand, okay, this is the direction that we're going to go. And this is why we're going to go this direction. but these are going to be the outcomes, and changing that direction where people understand that as policymakers and as a governor, I work for them. And so I owe you an explanation as to this is what the vision is, making sure that you understand it the way that I understand it, and owe you answer any questions that you may have. And when we're not making it, explain to you why we're not making it. But if we're not going to, we see that we're, as an example, this tax plan that the current governor has in place, or the previous governor had in place. Don't continue on and continue to tell you that it's going to be right. Stop and let's fix it, and bring the smart people to the table and sit down and fix it.
Okay. Speaking of the current governor.
Which one?
Yeah,
we have to be careful about which one we're talking about.
Yeah, let's call him the current governor, Governor Collier, who is a St. Louis native. He, after taking office, he signed some executive orders on sexual harassment training for executive staff, and also for more transparency in the state. Mm-hmm. Do you think those were good moves on his part? Are they doing enough? Or what would you do in his position?
I would have to look at it and see exactly what he's actually asking for. And the reason I say that is because this conversation that we're having today, and I've weighed in on this numerous sexual harassment or any of those things. I weighed in on that some time ago. But this is training and things in corporate America we had back in the 80s. And in the private sector, they were putting things in place during that time frame and creating training opportunities so that individuals would not be sexually harassing anybody, and understanding that there are consequences for doing that, but also educating individuals about respect. They were doing this, my God, in the military back in the 80s. These are the things that you can do. These are things you can't do. These are the things that you need to pay attention to about respecting each other and respecting each other's rights. So I don't know why the legislation and why the current governor are having this conversation today when it should have already been in place. And one of the things that we did do when I was mayor was pay close attention to those things. I've made sure that everybody had an opportunity to be at the table. They certainly had access to me to be able to talk to me, but continued to take that training and that skill that I brought from corporate America, brought it to government and applied it in government. And these are the expectations. And it was a zero tolerance to any form of discrimination or harassment whatsoever.
Okay. Let's talk about drugs. I'm sure you've probably heard as you've traveled around that that's a big concern of people in communities. What do you think is the bigger crisis as far as drugs, drug treatment, and the crime, treating it as a crime right now? What approach should the state be taking?
Well, when we look at, and just to be specific, are you speaking of opioids, or are you talking about all drugs in general?
Well, opioids, because that seems to be
that seems to be the buzzword for today. Yes. Well, certainly opioids are an issue, and we need to pay close attention to them, and certainly put some stiff guidelines in place. But we need to go back and we need to revisit our laws that we actually have in place, because of the fact that at one period of time, I can remember back in the 90s when we came up with a zero tolerance, and three strikes and you're out, and things of that nature, and we incarcerated a lot of people and a lot of young people because of that. So we need to go back and revisit our laws as to what we actually had in place, because we have drugs today that the penalty is not as bad as it was for something as simple as marijuana. And let's go back and let's revisit these laws and figure out which ones do we really need to be paying attention to, and who do we really truly need to be incarcerating. Certainly you don't want people out there selling them illegally or anything of that nature. And opioids, we need to hold the individuals, those that are manufacturing it, hold them accountable, and the people that are selling them and abusing them, and hold them accountable. But revisit the laws that we actually have in place, which takes that one step further. There's a discussion about about building a new prison, and I think that that has to be done first before you make a decision to build a new prison. We can incarcerate people every day for everything. All we have to do is just change the law and put stricter guidelines on them. Eventually, we get to a point where we're a form of government where we're incarcerating individuals for jaywalking. And I say that hypothetically because it is true we could get there. And the thing is that we don't want to get there. We need incarceration for individuals that need to be incarcerated, and other individuals like young people that are making mistakes, to look at it as for what it is. And there can be ways of being able to address that. Very similar to the alcohol issue that we actually have. We give individuals fines, we do various different things there. We just have to be a little smarter about things.
Should we legalize marijuana use?
Well, I'm a firm believer, certainly for medical use. I know lots of individuals that have illnesses and sicknesses and cancers and things of that nature that how it can actually help them. I have a sister right now that she doesn't live in Kansas, but she lives in Oklahoma, and she has stage 3 lung cancer. And I know that it would be one of those things, stage 4, I'm sorry. And I'm sure that it'd be something that would be able to help her. She has to eat through an IV. And so I've talked to other individuals that actually have it, and they struggle with keeping food down and doing things of that nature. So give them that, even the things that's going to prolong their lives just a little longer. Then taking this step farther is start looking at, if we start talking about cannabis and marijuana here in the state of Kansas, it's one of those things that right now we start looking at water issues and what it takes for us to grow corn and what it takes for us to grow wheat and things of that nature. And we're talking about in Western Kansas. Western Kansas has water issues, and we know that. And so start looking at different crops that we know that can survive, that don't require as many resources as we have to have, and start looking at it and start looking at opportunities that we can actually do it. I mean, to states that are to the west of us are selling it. So why shouldn't we at least explore it and look at it and start looking at what we can actually do there?
Okay. And you mentioned.
So the answer to your question is yes, we should look at legalization of marijuana, but even more so, the first priority is start looking at medical marijuana. And then taking it a step farther and start looking at what we call, there's marijuana and then there's hemp. And hemp is one of those things that's another product that we can actually put into production in agriculture, that we can actually start harvesting. We can make materials, we can make all kinds of different things with it, start utilizing it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have hundreds and thousands of acres of it here in northeastern Kansas that are just out there that we destroy it.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the proposal for a new prison.
Mm-hmm.
Should prisons be privatized, do you think?
The challenge you have is when prisons are privatized, that means that somebody has to stay in that prison to make a profit. And so it's a business, and we're talking about individuals' lives, and so I don't believe that we should be getting into privatizing it. You're supposed to be there in prison as a punishment, not for a business for somebody.
Okay. Your family last year suffered a great tragedy. Condolences
Mm-hmm.
on that. Did that event, not to capitalize on it, but that kind of change your focus in your campaign and what you'd like to do?
Well, it certainly brought more attention to that particular issue. And the reason I say that is when it happened to you, you never really think about how bad it is until it does happen to you. And I'm sure that others think the same thing. Then once it happened to you, then people start coming out of the woodwork. As I traveled around the state, they'd show up at the hotels I was at or different places I was speaking, and they'd have their legal documents and showing me the issues that they had or how they were dealing with DCF or the challenge they were having with courts or what their police records were saying. And it was just amazing the number of people that had problems, which made me start putting it in perspective. Okay, you're not alone. And so, I was extremely disappointed, and I become even more interested in finding out, some of the concerns. Uh, the grandparents of the child with that someone fed the pig to, and I had a chance to meet with them, and you had some others that their children had been taken away from them, and they were in very similar situations. I received a phone call one night, and I heard that my name came up in court. A judge was trying to make a decision, and the family stood up and started yelling, and they immediately started telling them that they didn't want to happen to their grandchild the same thing that happened to mine, and use my name. And so we kind of stopped the court to, the judge stopped the court and assured him that he wasn't going to allow that to happen. So certainly, I'm much more sensitive. But just like I tell my son and my children, is I think that it's not just DCF. DCF is just one portion of it. There's the courts, there's law enforcement, there's a whole host of different things. And what we want to do is find out, and we won't know that until it goes to court, what exactly happened, step by step, and then how do we keep this from happening again? Fix the entire process, because if you just fix DCF, or you just fix one portion of it, you just did nothing more than just put a Band-Aid on it, but the problem is still there. And we still have 70 some odd children that are sitting out there someplace that were taken out of homes, that were put in foster care, that we don't know where they're at. And there's no way that we shouldn't have had a tracking system that told us these children haven't been going to school. We should know exactly where they're at if they remove them from home. So our entire system is broken, and we need to fix the entire system. And that's the way, I guess that's something that I carry over from corporate America is figure out what's broken and fix the entire system to make sure that the entire system functions. Because if you don't, then all you're doing is continuously starting over and repeating itself.
That sounds like more than a one-term job.
It could be a one-term job. I think it can be done in one term. So we have to come up with a strategy and a plan and find out exactly what happened, and then how do we lay it out where we can stop this. But also, we have to put gates in there where we're measuring and making sure that we're success, that we're reducing the number of children that we're losing. We're saving children's lives. There are ways of being able to do that, and we can report to the citizens the successes and the progress that we're making. And if we're failing, as the governor, it's your responsibility to look the citizen in the eye and say, we did these things. Don't try to put the blame on somebody else. I mean, the buck stops with you at the very top. We did these things, and this is not working. I take full responsibility for this, and this is what we're going to do. Come up with a strategy and a plan as to how you're going to fix it. And the people that I work for, meaning you and the average citizen, have a right to know what that plan is.
Okay. All right. Last question. What would you like people to know about you? If there was just one thing, what would you like them to know?
Well, what I would like people to know about me is I'm just like them. I'm no different than them. I grew up, I'm a first generation Kansan, have 4 children, 13 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, and many of them live right here in Kansas. They attend public schools. They want a quality of life. My son is working in the aircraft industry, and my daughters, they're in the service support industries. And so what I want them to know about me is that I'm no different than them. I'm the guy that started working when he was 16 years old at a meat packing plant, and trying to help take care of my brothers and sisters. And I've come from the very bottom, and I know how hard it is to get to the very top. And I've been able to be successful in getting there. But secondly, I'm the person that's going to be about them. I want them to have the quality of life that they choose to have, because I saw poverty. I saw poverty most of my entire life, and so I want them to be able to have the quality of life that they choose to have, and that they have an opportunity. But I don't want individuals telling them what they can or they can't do, discriminating against them. I want them to see is that I'm the person that they will have access to. I'm the person that will be their voice, and that they can come and they can talk with me, and meet with me. I always had an open door policy as mayor, as a city councilman, and I would do the exact same thing as a governor. But I'm not above the people. I'm just like the people, and I'm about doing what's needed for the individuals that are out there. And I understand who I work for.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say in particular?
No, I'm encouraging individuals as we travel around the state. I'd love to get an opportunity to visit with individuals, to talk with them, so they get an opportunity to meet me. I'm more of a hands-on type person, and you know, one of the things I always said, you know, you're a community activist, you're not afraid of questions. So, and any question is a fair question, and so, you know, please, you know, approach me or go to brewerforkansas.com and reach out to us, and we certainly love to come to your community to visit with you. There's no place that we won't go, and nobody that we won't meet, and we certainly encourage you to give us a call, talk with us, and visit with us. But you know, give me an opportunity to be able to represent you. That way, you have fair representation and an opportunity to be at the table rather than be on the table.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time.